Hi everyone. Thank you very much, organizers of the FinPlan workshop, for inviting me. My name is Shireen Sohrabi, and today I'm going to talk about Scenario Planning Advisor or SPA. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge and thank members of the team that have contributed to the SPA project. There are a number of different projects and applications that I have been involved with at IBM. Here, I'm just naming three of them. Scenario planning, which is the one I'm going to talk about today, Auto AI, or automation of machine learning pipeline generation. We do have a paper on that that's presented by Michael Katz. App modernization, which is a process of porting a software solution to a modern one, often into a cloud environment. This is the new line of work that we're working on currently. In this talk, I will only talk about scenario planning, but if you're interested in the other projects, please do reach out to me. I want to point out that while the applications are different, there are several common things between them. In particular, there is domain knowledge available in all of these applications, but the challenge is how to elicitate the knowledge from domain experts or potentially learn them, perhaps from data, for example, text. And two, there might not be immediately obvious to people that there is a relationship to AI planning. So one might define the original problem and do some sort of a transformation to find the corresponding AI planning problem in order to use AI planning tools in order to find solutions to the original problem. And in order to solve these problems, we use a variety of planning tools, both planners and problem transformations. Some of them are highlighted here. Now, a common framework that we adopt for the use of AI planning is as follows. As I mentioned before, we have domain knowledge, and the first step is to create a planning model. Now, that can be elicited or learned. Hence, we need to somehow address the knowledge engineering challenge. Then we need to run the appropriate planner in order to solve it. Find plans, sometimes lots of plans. And sometimes we need to create planners that are suitable for our task and are motivated by the problem we face. In fact, we have worked on a number of different planners such as top K planning, top quality planning, or diverse planning. These tools are available and can be used by others. Then we need to post-process the results to translate the solution into a solution for the problem of interest. Optionally, you may need to adjust the model through feedback and start again. One of the things you get for free with AI planning is that the plans are very much accessible or understandable by humans with perhaps just a good UI interface. So it's explainable by default. So once the users view the plans, they can give feedback to the system and the model can be adjusted accordingly. Now, having this framework in mind, let's talk about the Scenario Planning Advisor or SPA in detail. SPA is a technology that automatically projects many possible future scenarios to provide insights for strategic decision making. SPA is a mature research asset at IBM that's available as an open service for non-commercial use. The problem SPA solves is scenario planning problem. So what is scenario planning? Scenario planning is a commonly used enterprise risk management or ERM technique facilitating decision makers in formulating long-term plans by considering multiple alternative futures. It's typically a manual, highly labor-intensive process involving dozens of experts and hundreds of thousands to thousands of person hours. As a result, only a few scenarios can be constructed by humans. Also, bias can be introduced. So, for example, high impact, low likelihood events could potentially be overlooked. The benefit you get with SPA is reduction in time for building scenarios from months to hours, exploration of orders of magnitude more scenarios than possible if built manually. In fact, one of SPA clients says, and I quote, SPA is 30 times faster in time to generate the dynamic risk model and the first scenario, at 3,000 times faster in time to generate the second scenario and each subsequent scenario. This is in comparison to a human expert. So the solution is to exploit NLU techniques to semi-automatically construct scenario planning models. And these models are needed for planning. These are the domain knowledge that's learned. And then we use AI planning to explore the space of possible scenarios that allows us automatically to generate lots of scenarios. And then we choose the relevant scenario to present to the user. So why AI planning for SPA? The problem is computationally hard. In fact, we've shown the scenario planning problem is NP hard, and this can be shown by reduction from, for example, Hamiltonian path problem. So we have a large space of possibilities to explore, and a highly efficient tool is required. Now, there are two possible solutions. One is to solve the problem by developing a dedicated solution. The loss of development effort, no guarantees, and it's hard to adopt if a problem changes or even a little bit. And second is to use existing solvers. So formulate the problem as a planning problem, use an existing set of planners, and separate modeling from solving the problem. So adopt a model if the problem changes. So why planning in particular? Because AI planning is an efficient tool for sequential decision making, and it also allows to explore huge space of alternatives very quickly. Since 3 years ago, when we presented SPA at ICAPS demonstration track, there are a number of new features or key enablers. First is the automated causal extraction from text. And this text could be business reports, 10K forms, just to name a few examples. This is new. This is the breakthrough edition that made SPA viable. And this is done via natural language understanding in order to extract knowledge from documents to craft the models needed to generate scenarios. This removes the manual encoding of knowledge and helps with the speed up. And it makes SPA operational in minutes to hours, down from weeks to months. Second is the streamlined user experience. While we used AI planning and clustering in the past in order to cluster similar plans and only present a handful of scenarios, now we have an improved version based on working with the automated result of the causal extraction piece. We also have an awareness component that uses Watson Discovery News to guide what-if analysis. We also enable an optional human-in-the-loop vetting of the results. So humans can take questionnaires to evaluate the extracted causal models. Finally, we have a fully automated, repeatable cloud deployment. This is available as an open service for all to use in non-commercial applications. IBM Chief Risk Officers, our internal first client, as well as another large organization, is actively developing models and applications across a number of different sectors. So in a little bit more detail, here's an architecture of SPA. The user or customer provides an initial collection of documents and evaluates or modifies the automated constructed models. This is done through a questionnaire. The space of valid scenarios is explored using AI Planner, and best scenarios are presented to the customer. SP automatically constructs these models used for AI planning and generates the AI planning models and sends them to an AI planner. Here we use Top K planning. The results are post-processed and relevant scenarios are presented to the user. The user provides their feedback on the scenario, which in turn is used to adapt a model. There's also an awareness component that helps the user with the selection of interesting or relevant drivers, such as high inflation, increasing taxes, or increasing trade deficit. That is, the user is able to explore the recent news in order to give them insights into which drivers they can select for the generation of scenarios. Now, exploring the generated scenarios assists users to carry on risk conversations for their business, and users are also able to do what-if analysis by selecting different sets of risk drivers. Now, rather than showing you screenshots of SPA, I'm going to play a video. This is a 2-minute video to give you a sense of SPA. Show you how a typical user would use SPA on perhaps daily basis. That is to provide some risk drivers of interest and let SPA generate scenarios. Here, the system will translate the problem into an AI planning problem called an AI planning service, which is the tool implemented by this team in order to search through thousands of possible future paths based on the selected risk driver and group them into scenarios. Here we see 4 scenarios that were generated. The SPA presents both textual as well as graphical view of these scenarios. For each scenario, we see 2 categories, probable and possible. The drivers that show up in these categories show up not because of some probabilistic projection, but based on how many of these plans contain these drivers. We also have some threshold that's adjustable by the user. Now, let's look at a graphical view of a scenario. Now, with respect to color coding, the green are the drivers that we selected. The yellow are business implications. These are the drivers that have some importance to your business. And blue are leading indicators. These are drivers that are a combination of early and discriminatory. They tend to lead to this scenario and not others. Observing these leading indicators could alert us as to which scenario is likely to occur. Now, to interpret this scenario graph, look at any node. The arcs from that node tell what that node might lead to, where it to occur. So in this graph, we have, for example, a natural disaster will lead to business or supplier disruption, which will lead to weakening economic environment, which will lead to lack of business investment and opportunities, and so on and so forth. So these graphs alert decision makers not only to business impact, but also to understand the events that could lead to these impacts. Furthermore, exploring the generated scenarios will assist them to carry on risk conversation for their business. Now, this demo only covered the scenario generation part of SPA, and if you're interested to see the full video, which includes interactions needed to create a planning model and also the news component or the SPA awareness component, please go to this link. There are some useful tools that we built and continue to use as a result of working on many applications that we work on IBM. These include classical planners, top quality planners, diverse planners, and so on. And more recently, we've made a number of domain and problems available. In particular, we have made available a domain inspired by scenario planning problem. All of our tools can be found via that QR code. Thank you very much for your attention.